Understood. Executing code.
Cast your minds back to early 2013, where a fresh-faced Clemps was hit with the news that Drakengard 3 was in development. Upon hearing the news, my initial reaction was something along the lines of this.
What do I do with all this semen? Why is there so much cum?
Finally, I thought to myself, there's a chance that Drakengard can get the type of polish it deserves instead of being rushed out of the door with missing content and a bucket list of other issues. How naive I was. Now that's not to say the game is bad. I mean, it's bad, but it's not bad. Oh boy, we're off to a good start here. I was happy to hear that Yoko Taro was back in the reins of Drakengard 3, but I was skeptical after reading that fans of Drakengard and Nier might be a little disappointed. Because of this, I was reconsidering a day one purchase. I had a strong feeling I'd end up regretting paying full price for it, and after playing Drakengard 3 in its entirety, I can safely say I was right to be worried. If I could sum up Drakengard 3 in 2 words, it'd be wasted potential.
Kinda similar to Drakengard 2 in that regard.
I mean, when I first started playing the game, I absolutely loathed it, but as I continued playing, I found more and more things to be impressed by, and one part of the game in particular I thought was pretty brilliant. But sadly, that alone wasn't enough to win me over completely. Instead of just covering the story and gameplay of the base game, I'll also talk about the DLC that expands on some character backstories that the main game missed. And although the DLC cost just as much as the main game, I'm sure I'll get my money back with the revenue that... Naturally, the opinions are purely my own and shouldn't impact your like or dislike of the game. It's explained in this cutscene that before the events of Drakengard 1, 5 mysterious songstresses descended upon the land of Midgard to rid the nation of its evil lords. The people came to worship these sisters and their songs, and eventually called them the Intoners.
And as a result, mankind enjoyed an age of sweet reverie, basking in the newfound light and...
What a fucking bitch! This cheeky little shit is Zero, the protagonist of Drakengard 3, and the game also wastes no time introducing the dragon, Michael. Right off the bat, we're introduced with some problems. Dem frames though. What the fuck is this shit? Yeah, gonna have to... I mean, god damn, I'm only gonna touch on this a little, but how can you let the frame rate get this bad? Yeah, I know, rushed development, but wow, I paid for a video game, not a pissing slideshow. As you can see, gameplay has improved significantly from the previous games, though it's still pretty messy and unresponsive at times. Zero has their traditional combo moves, and unlike the previous installments, you can lock onto enemies, which makes taking down single targets much easier as you ring around the rosies, a pocket full of... Eventually, Zero makes it to her destination where the cast of Madoka Magica are waiting for her, which is actually not far from the truth, as the designers were asked to use the show as artistic influence. These are Zero's sisters, and the Intoners who are now ruling the world in place of the evil lords. They follow the traditional magical girl motive of being designated to a certain colour like various other shows have done and are continuing doing so today. The sisters are named 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. I guess that's easy enough to remember, I can roll with it. I'm gonna warn you, don't go choosing a best girl or whatever crap it is you cute sons of bitches do nowadays, because Zero's on a hunt for Intoner blood and the game won't end till she gets it. After fighting the sisters, the leader of the Intoners, 1, summons a demon dragon named Gabriel. The DLC explains that this dragon was originally a female named Gabriella, who was voiced by none other than Angelus's voice actress. Only now she's a little spicier than usual.
Hey girl, you are the greatest! Do the same!
The game never explains how 1 changed Gabriella into a demon, but it's clearly a sensitive subject to her, and some things are alright left unexplained. Obviously, we aren't going to slaughter our sisters in the opening act, so Gabriel gets the plot rolling by shooting Zero's arm off, then proceeds to charge a killing blow. A dying Michael attempts to save Zero after getting his shit stomped in by a couple of titans, sending him flying and presumably killing him. This particular scene brings me onto one of the main devices of the game.
Run!
Song. The Intoners use song to power themselves up and to summon angels and demons to aid them in battle. You can initiate your Intoner mode by pressing, L2? R2? How the fuck do I... Oh, R3 and L3. Sure.
Your
too slow, you're too slow, you're too slow. Come on, step it up.
Whilst in this mode, it adds lyrics to the previously bland background music, an inclusion which I immediately fell in love with and was a great way to include song into the core game mechanics. After this, there's a slight time skip where Zero has seemingly recovered and still mourns the loss of Michael. She also has a plot device growing out of her eye. I guess it's kind of interesting how the dragon was killed off early into the game. I wonder how the game will function now that we've, Oh no. My thoughts exactly, sister. This is Michael's resurrected form, who Zero decided to call Mikhail. When a dragon resurrects, it loses all memory of who it once was, essentially making them a brand new individual. It also makes them a dumb idiot baby who likes to take poo-poo and pee-pee, which causes me to XD. I wanted this one. As the level progressed, I started to notice something I wasn't personally a fan of. In the original Drakengard games, the levels are very wide and spacious because it needed to accommodate the dragon who you could call throughout to make wiping out larger groups less of a chore. In Drakengard 3, we have hallways. This is down to the dragon segments on the ground being turned into separate levels, so there isn't a need for these wide open spaces. This is one of the many changes to the series I'm not a fan of, though I can understand them needing to do this considering how crap the frame rate is with just one dragon attack. Shifting back to the story, Zero is starting off her sister slaughter with the sex-crazed gluttonous 5. Whenever we meet a new sister, I'll insert their DLC prologue so you have a better understanding of their character. However, 5's DLC is not the best.
Once upon a time, many moons ago, there was a beautiful intoner and a young man. The intoner was driven by a vast array of lusts. A lust for honor, for wealth, for sex, for food. And the young man who accompanied her was really sick of it.
That ship, it's being really weird, right?
With the big, juicy crab finally dispatched, the group decided to cook and eat it on the spot.
Oh, so yummy. Oh, yes.
Just the kind of backstory we needed. I've got a perfect pedestal for you, my friend. Now here's a bit I wanted to show you all, but writing things down felt like I was a young child, desperately trying to drag Mummy and Daddy into the next room to watch the super cool things his video game characters were doing, much to Mummy and Daddy's annoyance. But unlike that situation, you don't have a fucking choice. Here we see an intoner summoning an angel with the help of her disciple, and the transition between her song and the boss theme.
Behold, the fifth song, grand light of antiquity, the great power made manifest, the ceremony of glorious arrival. Burn into thine eyes the punishing lance of divine retribution. I, Dito, summon thee in my name. Vanuel, arise!
How tacky can you get?
Some of the choices made in this game, it's good shit. Beating 5's angel, Vanuel, triggers the first of many fourth wall breaking scenes, which I'm still not entirely sold with. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're charming, but they shouldn't be overused, which the game does quite a bit. I guess comedy is a subjective thing, and I'm just being a big grumpy grump. 5 survives the attack and attempts to power up before her disciple Dito finishes her off, partly due to being a complete fucking psychopath. Disciples are humanoids whose job it is to defend the intoners and get rid of any physical desires they might have. I'm talking about sex. Did I forget to mention every intoner, including Zero, are sex-crazed nymphomaniacs? After reading Zero's novella, which stated she's a former sex worker, I thought it was a very interesting approach for a main character. It was a concept which stories and games have rarely focused on, and I'm not one of those people who won't play a character if they love dick, because I'd be a bit of a hypocrite. However, the game doesn't focus too much on Zero's past life and instead just loves talking about sex with no great payoff. If sex had an impact on the game's story other than, boy, I'm sure craving cock/boy pussy right now, then an interesting concept it would be. Instead, it feels awkward, especially with this fucker. Now we have Ditto as a companion, we're gifted with a spear. We have 4 different weapon types in Drakengard 3, the sword, the spear, fists and chakrams. Spears help to shatter shields of enemies blocking your path, fists are slow but pack a lot of power, and chakrams can help shoot down pesky enemies who are out of reach. But I found myself using the sword for a majority of the game due to its decent speed and attack radius.
You're late for the party, children. I hope you weren't loitering.
And if it isn't apparent, we're now in the land of mountains hunting the next sister, 4.
What kind of sister is 4?
The sleazy kind. I mean, you kinda have to be evil to be a virgin, Tony.
So you really can't get along with her?
Really, I can't deal with virgins.
At one stage, Zero defeats a Cerberus but fails to finish it off completely, resulting in her losing an arm. Again. This allows us to see how Intonas regenerate, using the flower to birth a new body with no wounds. Fast forwarding past a ton of knee-slapping scenes which totally impact the plot, we reach our first dragon mission in the air, and boy howdy, I really don't like them. Using the first 2 games as an example, the air missions allowed you to have complete control over your dragon. You could ascend, descend, and turn around in mid-air, etc, so on. In Drakengard 3, they decided to make it Star Fox, a really bare-bones Star Fox. And come to think of it, there really isn't anything more I can say about these. What you see is what you get, I'm afraid. Zero makes it to 4, and as usual, her Cold Steel the Hedgehog impression is on point.
I'm not leaving until I've strewn your virgin guts all over the goddamn snow!
At first I pitied 4. I felt she was one of the more normal sisters who was thrown into the cake mix of suffering for a bit of extra flavour. But then I played her DLC.
Dragons can see the shape of a person's heart. And the heart of this beautiful Intona was full of holes.
We achieved an honorable victory this day.
Yep. Keep telling yourself that. All you did was kill a bunch of helpless soldiers.
You know how the remaining elves have formed a band of air pirates, right? We dispatched them, but we didn't annihilate them.
This isn't even It's goddamn manslaughter! What's so funny?
We're fighting elves, remember? So it can't be manslaughter.
The screams of burning victims rang out from the downed vessels. The cries for help echoed far and wide. But none of it bothered the Intona in the least. After all, they weren't civilians. After all, they weren't human. The Intona was filled with sublime exhilaration.
World's biggest shit summons a fuck-off huge sentient castle which Zero and friends take down with little to no effort.
Tell me, are you saving yourself? Or do you just stink down there?
Stop! Stop it! Don't say that!
Upon landing on her ship, Zero pulls the oldest trick in the book and this big dum-dum suffers the consequences. Now that 4 is dead, Zero claims a disciple for herself, and I mean claims all of him.
Go clean up, front and rear. We meet tonight.
Front and rear?
Pickle surprise!
Decadus is a masochist. Maybe Taro thought this was the funniest shit ever, because Jiminy Cricket he loves to remind you of his sexual preference every goddamn level, to the point of having no other character traits that you can remember other than is polite. And with the exception of 1 or 2 characters, no pun intended, most of them can be summed up with one personality trait which doesn't leave me feeling anything for them when the inevitable suffering begins. Moving on, now we have an airship. Now we don't have an airship. Now we have a dragon. Now we don't have a dragon. Young man, middle-aged man, old man. That's another one off the checklist, gotta catch 'em all. This old man, Octa, is the disciple of 3, the next sister in line for the chopping block. He's decided to go rogue ever since her obsession with dolls has taken a rather sinister turn.
Once upon a time, many moons ago, there was a beautiful Intona and an elderly man. The Intona's only love in life was making dolls. She loved it so very much. Why do people fight each other? The man replied, I don't know. Why do people move? Why do people think? Why do people live? The Intona's questions continued on and on and on. The Intona's hobby caused her to lay hands upon human beings. Once she crossed that line, nothing could stop her. The elderly man silently excused himself from the room. He chided himself for his impotence, as he mourned for his now broken Intona. With our new disciple in tow, we find Mikhail, who somehow found himself in a spot of bother, and upon rescuing him, we come face to face with 3. She summons a horde of undead soldiers who we defeat with ease, only for her to forcefully use Octa to summon her angels.
All missiles, invade!
What is with you and giant flying demon babies?
Zero, that was one.
Did you really think something like that would finish an Intona?
Ah, well, hello there.
This is Sent, 2's disciple. However, unlike the other disciples, Sent and 2 are wildly in love. He manages to escape with Mikhail, leaving Zero and crew wingless till they get him back, which they do, rather quickly. Sent tells us that eventually Mikhail will be Zero's downfall, however nobody but Octa seems to really give a shit about this, so moving on. When we finally reach 2, we see she isn't the same girl we saw in the introduction. Her mind has gone. 2 is easily my favourite sister out of all of the Intonas, and my reasoning is her DLC, which is by far the most Drakengard-esque thing this game has produced.
Throughout the endless war, a kind Intona gathered orphans across the land and cared for them. She didn't have any parents of her own, so she wanted to help others escape the misery that she herself had known. And through it all, her one true love was always at her side. This is the story of a certain couple. A couple that strove endlessly to support each other.
A letter just arrived from Decadus. It seems something bad is happening in the cathedral city.
Something bad? Are the orphans all right?
They should be. They're holed up deep underground. And they've got a squadron of enhanced soldiers guarding them, so...
What? What happened to the cathedral city?
I may have made them less than one. Reinforce them with the power of your song. That may be why.
We have to get to the children!
These aren't your children anymore! It's a monster!
Why are they screaming? Why are they crying? Why are they calling out to me? Help me!
Lady 2, know that I will accompany you to wherever your broken spirit takes you.
Her 2 angels, Egregori, are taken down rather embarrassingly, and one of them causes Mikhail to evolve one stage further, which makes him look identical to Michael.
I suppose from this point on, I'll be serving you, Lady Zero.
Now, I had to go back and rewrite this bit. Originally I was calling Sent out for being a lying piece of shit, but then I started reading the Intona's memoirs in the DLC section of the chapter select screen. All of them are equally as interesting to read and gradually get more and more depressing as the stories go along. 5's goes from sex toys to trying to figure out what humanity and happiness is. 3's is written in the perspective of a young soldier who free turns into the first Cyclops. And 2's goes from a light-hearted recipe book to Sent trying to figure out how to get 2 to eat anything whatsoever after the incident. This particular section makes me think he's joining Zero in order to keep his word to two that he won't under any circumstance die, even if without his intoner, that's all he wants to do. So, pretty much instantly after 2's demise, we're in a very strange looking city chasing after the final sister, 1. I was once asked the question, why does the city in Drakengard 3 look similar to Tokyo in Drakengard 1? And my answer at the time was, Turns out that in the history of Midgard, this city just appeared one day and brought with it the ability to use magic. Could this be a parallel version of Tokyo? Could I be pulling things out of my arse? The answer is probably yes, to both.
Don't worry about me! You take that black piece of shit!
Whoa, dude! Hey, dude, that was too far.
When we near the entrance to the main cathedral where 1 is located, Zero decides to let us know that disciples are only able to keep their human forms within Intona's power. Well, thanks for letting us know this. Honestly, at this point I had no idea they were even inhuman creatures.
I'm giving you your old forms back.
We wish them all luck with their new careers and her TOEFL boyfriend. Entering the cathedral brings us face to face with 1, the leader and last remaining of the Intona sisters. She begins to talk about some Drakengard lore, but Zero is all,
so you must be the secret ingredient.
Fuck you!
Fuck you!
And thus begins the final showdown with Gabriel, which I sucked at. I sucked pretty hard. And just like that, we're already at the ending of Branch A, where Mikhail is shot with a fatal blast, causing Zero to beg him to resurrect himself. Mikhail decides to shed light, but the dragon gets a final wish, and that's what causes them to resurrect. However, he decides to use this wish to allow Zero to win the fight, which is kind of a shitty ass way for this branch to end. Like, oh okay, we can't beat the boss with our wits, instead we're just like given a wish or something? Cool.
I'm sorry. Goodbye.
Mikhail. It's over.
Oh well, 1 and Mikhail are dead. Guess it's just Zero left now.
One.
I'm 1's brother.
When did this fucking happen?
Once upon a time, many moons ago, there were 5 beautiful Intona sisters. 4 of the Intonas owned a personal servant called a disciple, but 1 of them had no disciple at all. Lacking a disciple to call her own, the Intona used one of her own ribs to fashion herself a brother. The 2 of them made up for what each other lacked, and they grew up together within the cathedral.
Well, this cheeky chappy, sick reference by the way bro, I get it, has fulfilled his goal of killing Zero, and now that his sister isn't alive, he's a little confused about what to do. He leaves the room coated in Zero's blood to create the Cult of the Watchers, and also has his own spin-off manga. If you don't like feeling like complete shit, then you should probably leave this manga alone, this is your final warning. And this concludes Branch A.
I should have known this branch would also end like this. Seems like we should have taken a different branch somewhere along the way.
Who are you? Who are these characters out of nowhere? Guess you'll all be finding out in Part 2.
Chinese water torture.